I was getting a lot of information about things like the evolutionary journey of the soul, the structure of the soul, how the soul is able to generate its own energy and transmit that energy to the body through the chakra system, and then distribute that energy into through the meridian lines of the body. And how that system works pretty much universally for planets and all soul beings. And, and then I started learning the mechanics of creation, how creation is a stair-step process of how light and sound waves intersect with each other, create a spark, which is called the spark of God, and that creates conscious awareness in the soul body. And then the soul undertakes the soul journey through the dimensional structure. All of this information was very new to me, so it took me a lot of soul searching, questioning, and that's one of the things that my higher selves made me aware of. They said to me that they,
My shop.
hi Val, that they could teach me because I was asking questions, because my questions would reflect to them what I understood and what I didn't understand. So their purpose was to give me a full understanding of of the way the universe works. So that's why I encourage people to ask questions. And Arena's sent me an email with some good questions, which I'll answer at the end of this presentation. And then I went on a second journey to SiriusB. I call it SiriusB because that's what humans understand. SiriusB is a star system that we see in our sky. It's called the morning star or the bright dog star. But it actually consists of, well, it originally consisted of four planets, four stars, Sirius A, Sirius B, Sirius C, and Sirius D. But Sirius D is very small and it no longer exists, it's been destroyed. So, but we can still see it in the sky because it takes thousands of years for the light from those stars to actually reach Earth. But that gives you a clue about how time and space works. You know, what
Recording is being recorded.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but I was told to be that I would be interfered with, that my recordings would be interfered with, and that's what they're doing. They're just cutting me off from time to time. Yeah, but the understanding light and sound will give you an understanding of time and space as well. But when I arrived for the second journey, I went through a similar process to my first journey where it was just mist. I was surrounded by mist, and then my higher self, who I called Aismir, was standing in front of me, and we had a long chat, and he told me that they were very pleased with the progress that I'd been making and how well I had understood their teachings and what they taught me. And basically, he said that he had a lot of information he wanted to give me during this journey, and that I would be presented with a choice. I didn't understand what he meant then, but he later presented me with that choice. But we went and we met some of the other beloveds there, and when the mist disappeared, and I was presented with pretty much the same landscape that I had seen before. But they had also shown me in the previous journey that they can change the landscape simply by the power of their consciousness. And they live in different layers of consciousness. It's like watching a TV program. You can change the color on your TV to go from black and white to different colors and change the colors. You can change the resolution of the TV set, and you can change what is called the, the contrast. So that they can do that simply through their consciousness. They understand that what we experience here is like watching a TV, but it's a three-dimensional TV that is a hologram, and they are able to control the hologram through their consciousness. We also have the power to do that, but we just don't understand that what we are experiencing is a holographic reality, and that we are the creators of our hologram. But because our minds and emotions have been hijacked, we simply repeat the script that we've been given in the movie that we're watching. And that script is given to us from the day we are born here. So we just keep telling the same story over and over and over again, because they don't really change the script. They just change the environment, they change the furniture, they change the backdrop and the set pieces on the set. So yeah, it's if you understand history, you see that this history just keeps repeating itself, because we are the creators of our own history, but we don't understand that. So we keep repeating what we've been told. We keep being obedient to a system that is being created, because it is a systemic thing. It's a system that's been created to enslave humanity. So I asked a lot of questions about that, and I asked my higher self, well, how did this occur? Why are humans so dumbed down here? And he began to give me a lot of the Earth history, but also the history of the fall, of the fallen angelics. And basically Earth's history goes back to a planet called Tara in the Lyran constellation, where there was a war between two competing groups, the Elanians, who later came to be the Atlanteans on Earth, and the Murians, which later became it came to Earth as the Lemuria. So what they did is they blew the planet of Tara up into, and it blew up into 12 major, lesser and minor bits, and they were sucked through what is called the black hole, because the constellation of Lyra existed in the third density, which is dimensions 7, 8, and 9, and it was sucked through a black hole into dimensions 4, 5, and 6. And these bits of planets were, through gravitation, were pulled into the rotational system of our sun. So they became the 12 planets of our solar system, and Earth held the chakra, the heart chakra of Tara. So There were many seedings on planet Earth. That was the Tara event happened about 5.5 billion years ago. And it took some time before the Earth emerged and the planets in our solar system emerged as planets around our sun to create the existing solar system. Now, when I tell people that there were 12 planets that were originally around the sun, they say, well, no, we only have 9 planets, so what happened to the rest of them? Well, the truth is, we had a planet called Malbec, which was destroyed by the Anunnaki before. Sorry about that, I got dropped again. Yeah, so the Anunnaki had blown up this planet called Malbec, which was one of our planets, that caused another planet in our system called Nibiru to go off at an angle of 23.4 degrees into a rotation around the the Earth's binary sun called Nemesis, and it comes back approximately every 6,500 years to Earth, which usually brings a catastrophic event to Earth. Because when Nibiru set off on its tangent to the Earth, our solar plane, it took a lot of the debris from Malbec, and the debris from Malbec now forms what is called the asteroid belt. But whenever Nibiru comes back into the solar plane of our solar system, it brings all this debris back, and these are the asteroids and meteoroids that cause destruction, have caused destruction on this Earth many times. So Malbec. Then there was another planet called Ceres, which was also Ceres, which was a small planet that was next to Mars, and Ceres got blown off its course and off its gravitational pull because it's a very small planet, and it became a moon on Neptune. So there were that destruction of Malbec accounted for 3 of the planets in our solar system. Nibiru comes back every 6,500 odd years, and it's due to come back into our solar plane sometime in the future. I won't tell you when, because that might cause you some panic. But
It's coming.
Sorry, Kati?
It's coming soon. I've been following it for a while.
Yeah. But it's not.
It's coming. Pardon?
It's not imminent. It's not in the next few years. It's going to take a little. Yeah.
Oh, I see. I thought it's literally going to be within a handful of years.
Well, it'll be in probably most of our lifetimes, but depending how well we age. But that's one of the matters of urgency about us being in an ascension cycle. An ascension cycle is a cosmic cycle that happens every 25,500 years or 26,000 years. And the cosmic cycle was introduced because about 245 billion years ago, there was an event in the universe called the fall of Metatron. And Metatron was a collective of beings who followed a leader called Metatron. And among that collective, there was the Lucifer, Satan, and all the people that we think of as being one person, but they're not. They're separate. They were all a collective of beings. And at the fall of Metatron, that used a very diabolical plan to cut a portion of the universe off from the rest of the universe. And it's all has to do with frequencies and mathematics. But what they basically did they attacked a planet called Avion, which held the Universal Stargate 11. So in the Universal Stargate system, they managed to cut off the connection between Universal Stargate 11 and Universal Stargate 12, which kind of created a rupture and a rip in time and different wormholes that were used by them to travel into a system. So they created an alternative reality system by changing the frequency of the universal frequency system. And pretty much like, in 1945, they changed the frequency of Yep, there we go again. Yeah, they changed the frequency of our musical system in 1939 because it was the Germans who wanted Wagner's music to be played at a frequency of 440. So they changed the middle note C from 432 to 447, and that became the tuning frequency that is used in our music still today. So we are listening to a frequency that is not of music that is not meant to be like it is. Whereas Mozart wrote all his music in the frequency of 432, and he would probably not recognize his music in this frequency of 440. But that's just if you understand energy and how frequency changes consciousness, you'll understand the significance of that. Well, what the fallen angelics did here, they created an alternative reality by changing the frequency of the hologram, of the universal hologram. And the universal hologram is what is called a reality field. And the reality field is created for the purpose so that beings can experience themselves as physical beings and can give themselves experiences that will progress them into higher dimensional states of consciousness. So Metatron created this system where he changed the frequency of the universal frequency system, and he created it at one semitone below the frequencies of the universal system. So in a sense, he created an alternative hologram. And that alternative hologram is what we are experiencing here on this plane. But it wasn't just the frequency of the hologram that was changed. About 26,000 years ago, after the Anunnaki had blown up Melbach, they came to Earth, but they had a long-term program that they were implementing, and that was to try, they were here as invaders to try capture the consciousness of the entire solar system. So they came next to Earth and befriended the people on planet Earth. Now understand that at that stage, we were in this harmonic universe 2, or the density 2. So we were semi-etheric beings at that stage. And we were, and my higher self told me, quite a bit about that. And he told me that the human angelics were created here about 245,000 years ago, and that they were the third seeding of the planet Earth. The first seeding was of the dinosaur races, and then after they were destroyed, they then seeded the behemoth beings, what we call the Bigfoots. So they were very strong beings, but most of them were destroyed. But the Bigfoots are still around. Some of them, they've gone underground. Because many race beings, after each cycle of Nibiru created these cataclysmic events, many beings went underground. And they survived underground, and many of them still survive underground. And so the Bigfoots also survive underground. But because they survive underground, the DNA is changed because they don't get much light or light from the sun. They generate the internal light. So their DNA is changed, and they don't like to really come out from their caves and so on because they can't stand the heat from the sun. And their physiology can't process the vitamin D that's produced in their bodies from the sun. They're used to natural vitamin D and not vitamin D from the sun. But there are a whole lot of things related to that. But the point I'm trying to make is that the third seeding of Earth, the Earth, that's when they created what they call the jewel of the Earth. And where many beings from many different planets and star systems and dimensions all contributed DNA to planet Earth to create the diversity of the species that we have here. And the diversity of species on planet Earth is greater than anywhere else in the universe. And they considered that the jewel of the universe. And then they seeded the humanoids on this planet, and they seeded 5 different race groups: the white Caucasians, the black Negroids, the yellow Asian people, the brown Asian people, and the red people, like what we call the Redskins, the red people in North America. And these different race groups all lived very happily together with each other. Their consciousness had not been affected, and Earth was a thriving metropolis for many different species to come here and trade, and it was really a thriving planet. But when the Anunnaki came here, they seduced the Earth leaders to bring in this moon that we have now. It's not actually an organic matter being. It's in fact inorganic. It's a spaceship. It's a broadcast station. And they brought in this broadcast station, which is hollow. Well, it's not completely hollow. It's more like a honeycomb. But our science knows it's hollow because when we set off certain sounds, bounce certain sounds off the moon, it rings like a bell, they say. So the Earth, they brought in the second moon, and ostensibly they brought it here to bring light into the darkness of the night because it would reflect the sun. But they very cleverly set the moon, rotational spin of the moon with the Earth, so that they would counter-rotate in each other, and we would only see the dark side of the moon. We wouldn't see we'd only see one side of the moon. And they did that purposefully so that they could use the dark side of the moon for their nefarious activities here. And the humans accepted that, and they were quite delighted with, the humans at the time accepted it, and they were quite delighted with this new moon that had come in. And then the Anunnaki offered to bring in a second moon, because of the phasing of the moon. When the moon goes into when you go into new moon status, there's not that much light. So they wanted to create an alternative moon to bring further light. And they did that by bringing in an asteroid into our atmosphere. But instead of it going into an orbit around the sun, it actually collided with Earth and created a big, large crater, which is located somewhere in the USA. Well, what that did is set off the dust. Well, first of all, it knocked the planet off its rotational spin at 23.4 degrees. So you had the Earth's rotational spin at 23.4 degrees, and you had Nibiru going off at 23.4 degrees. So Nibiru is part of the broadcast system. It's complex physics, but I've been told how it works. But I won't go into that work. Just understand that these are no coincidences. It's not a coincidence that 23, when you take 90 degrees and you minus 23.4, you come up with 66.6 degrees. Now that's the original mark of the beast, 666. But when this asteroid collided with Earth, it sent a lot of when Earth was tilted off its grid, it lost its natural ability to draw universal energies into its energy body field. And the Earth is just like we are all sentient beings with a soul, and the Earth is also a sentient being and with a soul. And so the Earth's sentience was lost because it was no longer its electromagnetic spin was at a different angle to its rotational spin, its physical rotational spin. And that caused a lot of damage to the consciousness of the people here. And the Bible records that as the Tower of Babel event, where the people lost their ability to speak, and there was a confusion of languages, and they didn't know who they were, and they hid from each other, and they ran away, and they took caves, and they lost their conscious ability. And from that state, there was a lot of chaos that happened on this planet. But over time, what the fallen ones have done is they've created an alternative reality on the system, on this planet. And the purpose of this alternative reality system is to keep us separated from the universe and separated from each other, so that we don't understand the unitary nature of the universe, and that how all things are connected to each other through the wave fields, because the wave fields, light and sound waves, are what connects everything in the universe. And we are light and sound beings because of the wave fields. And in our soul bodies consist of electromagnetic energy, which is light and sound. And the light manifests as information, memory, imagination, and the sound manifests as emotions. So we are essentially energy beings, but we've been programmed here on this planet to think of ourselves as just being physical beings. Yeah, I do apologize again for that. But I have no idea why that's happening. Well, I have some idea, but it's nothing that I'm doing that's does this. I'm just being cut off really. I'll have to reconnect, but that's fine. I don't mind. Adversity only makes you stronger. Yeah, I was telling you, I was speaking about the fallen angelics and what they did to the consciousness of humans, and the false reality system that they've created here. And they manage it by managing the information they give us and by managing our emotions. That's why they create all this trauma on this planet, like the convert stuff that we've just all been through, and now they're traumatizing humans with the war in Ukraine. But it's just one narrative after the other to keep humans in fear, and if you keep humans in fear, you can control their consciousness. And it takes a lot of faith. I'm back again. It takes a lot of faith to actually resist what's happening on this planet. Faith not in God only, but in yourself and in the truth, because in fact we are the truth. We are the I am. I am is the truth, and the truth of who we are is what we are. And we're all bits of the same truth. But what happened here with the fallen angelics, they've created the system that drives us into a state of duality. And it's very important to understand that duality depends on a couple of things. One of them is the what is called the blame game. What they do is they create a system of people in authority who don't take responsibility for anything they do. They just keep, if someone is found guilty of something, they just remove them, or they just justify their actions by some other means, and it seems that nobody on this planet takes responsibility for anything. And when we reveal truth to them, they just deny it. And they are liars. And the problem here is we've just been told so many lies about everything that it's very difficult to discern what is true and what is truth, because our consciousness has been invaded by a bunch of lies. And I once challenged a group of people that I told this to, and they said, no, you're talking nonsense. And I said to them, tell me one thing that you know to be true that isn't a lie. And they came up with stuff, and I showed them that it was a lie and that it wasn't true from an energetic and a scientific and a quantum physics and quantum mechanic point of view. And they were amazed. They believed the history they'd been given of this planet and the history they were taught here. And you can poke so many holes in the history that we've been given here that the people are just not aware how history is manipulated. The stories about our history are manipulated, so there's no truth in history. There's no truth in science. There's no truth in mathematics. Mathematics has been manipulated to keep us in a closed loop system so that we can't understand the nature of infinity. Whereas Nikola Tesla created an alternative form of mathematics that he called the 369 system of mathematics. And if you understand the 369 mathematics, that is the mathematics of the universe. But it's very difficult if you're working off a base system of 10, which is the decimal system we're working off here. Whereas if you work off a base system of 3, you can connect to the universe, because the universe works off a base system of 3, 6, 9, 12, here 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 27, 2 plus 7 is equal to 9. Once you get into the system and you see the interconnectedness of numbers, really, you can see that, how energy flows from one number to another. Whereas the mathematical system we've got here blocks energy every time. Yeah, the system of mathematics here actually blocks off energy, and that's what the fallen ones did when they attacked the Metatronic collective attacked the Stargate 11 of Avion. They created an alternative, what is called the Metatronic system, and it's really a copy of the universal system, but at a different frequency. And because they cut themselves off from the universal energy system, they had to find an alternative source of energy. So they invaded planets and then created their Metatronic system on the planet, and they used the inhabitants of those planets as their energy source. So in a sense, we are the energy source of these fallen angelics. But having said that, the fallen angelics were removed from our planet in 2014. I was given a big download of information then in April 2014, where I was told the fallen angelics have been removed here, apart from a small group who wouldn't leave and who are in Antarctica. That's why Antarctica is such an important place for many of the cabal and globalist collective, because so in a sense that is what driven the cabal and globalists into a panic, because they know their system is coming down, and it's coming down in many different ways, and in a sense, we are the ones who are bringing it down, because we're looking for alternative truth. We're looking for alternative narratives to protect our consciousness from all the lies they tell us. And if you're listening to the lies that they tell on, it's not. You can listen to the lies they tell, but don't believe them. And that's what I do when I watch, anything on YouTube or on the news. I'm hearing a lot of stuff, and I have to really sift out the nonsense that they are telling, and so that I can see the truth. But I hold an alternative truth to what they hold, and I know that this whole system's coming down, and I know that we as a collective of beings, that is the human angelics here, are being prepared for an ascension. Okay, so this second trip I had to SiriusB was very. It was very painful in one sense, where I learned the truth of what has happened to humanity, and I showed it in that I became a bit morose and a bit sad, and my higher self then approached me and said, listen, if you'd like to stay here with us in community with us, we can facilitate that. Or you can go back to Earth. And they said to me, they then asked me if I would be prepared to go to Earth to become a grid worker. And I knew quite a bit about the Earth's grids, but I didn't know what grid working was all about. And essentially, you can say that the grid workers are people, beings here, who hold their energy in a certain way that it's able to transmit energy through the Earth's ley lines. And energy is information. Information is energy. So if we are able to hold ourselves in integrity and in authenticity, we are able to pull that in. Just so sorry, my connection keeps cutting out, so I disappear every now and again, but I keep coming back. That's what I do. Yeah, so they asked me if I'd be prepared to do that, which that was the choice I made, to come back and help this planet. So I spent 8 years doing grid work. And to be a grid worker, you have to be in absolute authenticity, in integrity with yourself, and you have to be perfectly honest. So that was a very difficult thing for me when I first got back, because I found out how many little lies I would tell, because they weren't big lies, but little lies. And in many of my interactions with people, I wouldn't be really expressing myself. I would be responding in a way that they were expecting me to respond. So I was being inauthentic. And, sometimes people would say, "Oh, come on over, and we'll have a barbecue, and we'll have a couple of drinks, we'll have a party." And I sometimes, that's the thing. Is one of the things that told me about when I was in SiriusB, and I was coming back. They said, when you go back, you will have to be fully human. Because in SiriusB, you have a different state of consciousness, you have a different state of physical being. And to come back to this earth, you suddenly find yourself back in 3D dense reality. So it's a different state of consciousness, but this planet is very dense in terms of the energies here. So I had to come back and then learn how to be authentic, how to be honest, how to be in integrity with myself. And so what I did is I stopped seeing people. I just kind of cloistered myself and almost lived the life of a hermit, so that I could concentrate and focus on my energy work. But having said that, I still had friends that I loved and cared for, and I wanted to see. So I would go see my friends, but I was informing them of the changes that were taking place within me, and they were often quite astounded in how I was changing, because I just wasn't the same old hail fellow, well found, and let's party and have a good time. I still enjoy having a good time and having fun. That hasn't changed, because I can still have a good laugh with people. But I find that I've got to do that and be in integrity with myself, honest with myself. And so over a period of 8 years, I learned how to do that. And in 2014, I was told that our grid work had been successful, and that the fallen angelics off planet had been taken off, removed, and that that Earth was being prepared for the ascension cycle. And I was given a lot of information about what would happen after 2014, and a lot of the information that I see happening, a lot of the things I see happening now, align with what I was told in 2014. I was told about the Great Awakening on the planet, because in 2014 there were very few people awake on this planet. Believe me, I looked for them, I couldn't find them. But now they're all over the place. I mean, just look at all of you. I mean, we are ready for this battle. So, the whole consciousness of the planet is changing. But what we have to do is to learn how the universe actually works, how energy works, and we are energy beings. Our thoughts are energy, our emotions are energy, and we have to learn how to direct that energy. We have remarkable abilities that I know about and I've seen, in my own life, but I've also seen how other beings in other space-time continuum can use their energy, like their palms. If someone is not feeling well, they can just use their palm of their hand to express energy. The right palm sends energy out, the left palm brings energy in. So they use that to, if they want to pick up energy from somebody, they simply stick their palm out and the energy comes in. And they have different, they use their heart, their chakras in remarkable ways that we don't know about here. And in changing energy flows and making sure that our chakras are open and that the energy in our soul bodies are flowing absolutely. So this is we're probably getting near the end of this presentation, but going forward, I don't know if you folks would like to continue these journeys, but I'm keen to do it. But I would like to change them to a Sunday rather than on a Tuesday. And I was thinking not this coming Sunday, but the Sunday after next we can do it, but also at a different time. I was thinking about 9 a.m. PST. How does that sound for most people? It's Pacific Central Standard Time, which is about it would be about 6 p.m. for me here in South Africa. But I'll do a notice on that. But if you could let me know your feelings on that, if you'd prefer an earlier time or you want to stick to this time, and if Sundays suit you. Then I also said in my last show that I would be doing a journey with you and a technique you can use to enable your soul body to connect with your higher self, higher consciousness, and open up but to do that you have to open up your pineal gland, so I'll do that as well. But I'll do that as a separate video, and I'll post it onto my Patreon account and send that to all my students, past and present. And anybody else who doesn't get access to that, you're welcome to either message me on Messenger or just email me and I'll send it to you. So that's where we are. Then I just wanted to deal with Arena's, I'm not sure how to say her name, questions. And she asks, you mentioned several times that it is the consciousness that travels, not the flesh body. Well, that's true. It's our consciousness travels, but the consciousness is our soul body. And in our soul body, we hold the blueprint for our physical body. So wherever the consciousness goes, it can create its physical body. So when I traveled into higher dimension, I was able to take my physical body with me because it was my consciousness that traveled, but was able to take my physical body through the dimensional fields into higher states of consciousness. But and so when I was in the second density dimensions 4, 5, and 6, my body became semi-etheric, and in dimensions 7, 8, and 9, it became etheric. But the interesting thing I found about it, when you're in density 2 and 3, you are not aware that your body's semi-etheric. It feels pretty much like you feel, yeah. Except that you can notice that you can walk through things like trees and buildings, and you can walk through people even. So that's in dimensions 7, 8, and 9. So etheric bodies are quite different from semi-etheric bodies, and semi-etheric bodies are quite different from physical bodies. But if if you've in your previous lifetime have incarnated into this second density or the third density, you carry the blueprint of that body in your soul body. They call it the soul codes of the body. It's all the information of previous. I'm going to have to find another form of meeting so that we don't keep having this nonsense, because I'm not doing anything to stop that. I see my internet connection's quite stable. Maybe Zoom are causing that, I don't know. Yeah, so the consciousness the soul body travels through the dimensions, and if you've if you've incarnated here from other dimensions, you hold the blueprint for semi-etheric or etheric body. So when you descend from Earth, you will have a different soul body, because remember I said that as human angelics, we were stationed in the second density, so we already have that soul code in.
You're muted, Colin.
Thanks for the reminder, Val. Yeah, so if you have the soul coding of density, and most of us originally come from density 2, so we already have an encoding for density 2 in our soul bodies. We just have to raise our frequency of our soul bodies into a higher state of consciousness in order to go into density 2. But some of us come from density 3, so we already have the encoding in our soul bodies to be etheric beings. And people are not aware of this, but many people on this planet, like myself, come from other star systems and other dimensions. We just can't remember it because of the blank slate technologies that we used on our minds, so, to wipe our memories clean. Let me just deal with the next question. When you were there, would you say that you witnessed everything as pure consciousness, or your consciousness produced a body similar to that of the beings who normally reside there? Well, I wouldn't say I was pure consciousness. I actually was the same person that I was on Earth when I was there. But because of the training I'd been given and the techniques I'd used to raise my frequency, not only of my physical body, but my consciousness as well, I wouldn't say I was pure consciousness, but I had the same consciousness that I had here on Earth. Which was different from the beings who lived there, because they were much higher. They had a much more capable understanding of being there. And then she asked, during the experience, it sounds that your 3D body was in deep sleep. Was it just sleep, or much more than that, in stasis? Well, to be honest with you, I was not conscious of my physical body here that was sleeping. It was only when I woke up in the mornings that I became conscious of my physical body here. And usually when I woke up, I felt very tired. And as I said in other meetings, sometimes I was drained of energy and often would feel sick, nauseous, and not able to function normally. So yeah, it does have an effect on the physical body. And she asks, as conscious stasis. Yeah, but some people do go into stasis. When I was on Sirius B and Earth at the same time, I was in what they call a state of bilocation. So I was consciously aware in both density fields. I'll speak to you some other time about how bilocation, translocation, and so on works. It's just about how you travel through the frequency fields, the multi-dimensional fields of reality. And she says, I take it at the time you were living alone and had ample space, solitude, so probably there was no chance of someone in the Earth 3D reality disturbing your sleep while you were traveling. But if that had happened, how would it have affected your experience? And to be honest, I don't know, because I never had that experience. But I would guess that if someone had come in to the bedroom and woken me up, I would probably have traveled back immediately back into my 3D body and be fully aware as 3D consciousness. It did occur to me while I was traveling that that might happen, but I never asked that question of how it would affect me. She asked, also, you mentioned that the beings you met eventually asked you if you wanted to stay there or return to Earth. If you had chosen a second, what would have happened to your 3D flesh body? Well, if I'd chosen to stay there, I would have done a process called Bardoa, where Bardoa is where you just drop your body. And many beings, when you're traveling through the dimensional universe, the fallen angelics often do this. They drop their bodies and they enter the body of someone else, and they take over the consciousness of that person. So one can actually drop your body. That's what happens when we die. We just run out of energy. Our souls want to move on, and we drop the body, and the soul moves on. Would it have dematerials, suspicious disappearance, apparent death during sleep, or possibly to determine reason, any of those? No, if I'd been woken up, and if I'd decided to Bardo, I just would have my body would have died here, because the energy from my body comes from my soul, and if my soul's somewhere else and decides to move on somewhere else, the body dies. Okay, folks, that's about it. Sorry about all the interruptions, and I hope it's been worthwhile for you. And I will do the exercise for meeting your higher conscious, but you should be aware that it first of all involves an exercise of activating your pineal gland, and I'll explain what that is and how to do that. That's just one of the things I had to learn early on, and it was very valuable for me to understand. It involves something called soft focus, and the thing is, soft focus is when you kind of daydream and you're seeing but you're not seeing, so you're out of focus with the things. The information of what you're seeing is not actually penetrating your mind, it's going into your pineal gland, and we have to learn how to do that, to go into soft focus. But to activate the pineal glands, many of our pineal glands have been dumped down here, and they have I was going to say caramelized, but it's not a caramelized. Well, it's almost like a caramel, around them, but it's like a plastic covering around the pineal gland, but it's very fragile. And so I do a tapping exercise where you do this regularly, and you tap, and that breaks down the protection around the pineal gland and begins to activate it. I don't know if you know about the tapping, where you tap different areas of your face and your body, that changes the energy of your body. I used it very effectively for healing headaches and stuff like that. So tapping your forehead is a good way to activate your pineal gland. But I'll go into that in that exercise. But I just thought I'd explain that while I've got the time. Yeah, thanks, Val. Yeah, tapping is great. I've used it very effectively, and it's interesting because tapping your forehead actually is like beating a drum, and the drum creates frequency, and it resonates through your head. Yeah. So yeah, that's it, folks. So we'll be meeting not this Sunday, but the Sunday after next. And thank you for all attending, and delighted to be with you. And I hope this is beginning to make sense to you, because I know how difficult it was for me, going through this experience. I fortunately asked a lot of questions, and I wanted to know. I deeply wanted to know, because I had always through my life felt there was something missing. There was some information that I hadn't been told, that I wanted to know about. And that's how I kept drawing the information towards me by asking questions. So please feel free to ask questions, and because the asking of the questions gives me an indication of how far you've come in your own understanding, and what information you need to improve your understanding. So it's not like an interrogation or an exam or anything like that. It's just a communication, that helps me, the teacher, to help you to answer the questions that you ask. So love you all.
Hi, Colin, what's the best way to ask you questions? Do you want an email or a message, or what's the best way to do it?
You can send an email, or you can send you can message me in Facebook on Messenger, because I open my emails in Facebook every day. Or you can just, I try to end off each session with a question and answer, so you can just wait till the end of the session and you can start asking questions. That will be helpful, because everyone then hears your question.
Yeah.
But yeah, by all means, send me your questions, and then at the end of each session, I'll answer the questions that I've been asked. And thank you all again. I'm really so grateful for all of you, and we're getting there, and we're going to win this. I have great assurance we're going to win this. Love you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you. See you later.